We've got some news of a pretty big change happening to AEW Collision over this summer as the show has been dealing with record low crowds for AEW as well as low ratings. AEW is trying to do something new and interesting to try to combat that. We're going to take a look at this strategy, what the announcement was, what the news was, and how it might affect the show and AEW overall moving forward. We also have an update about the main event of WWE Clash at the Castle in Glasgow, Scotland, later this summer. We're going to tell you what we know about that as well. All of that, much more coming up right here in this video. So be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right, let's talk about AEW Collision, the big news, the big move, people are calling it, that AEW Collision is making. It was announced today via AEW's website that the path to All In Summer Series is going to start on July 20th with AEW Collision beginning a residency in Arlington. Here is the official press release from AEW. It says, All Elite Wrestling and the city of Arlington today announced a historic partnership that will feature AEW hosting a summer series of events on the path to All In from the world-class esports stadium in Arlington beginning Saturday, July 20th. Esports Stadium in Arlington is set to be the hub of cutting-edge wrestling action, hosting a multitude of AEW and Ring of Honor events throughout August and July and August. The lineup includes TNT's AEW Collision, Battle of the Belts, and the highly anticipated ROH Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view event on Friday, July 26th. Now, it goes on to say, these are quotes actually from AEW and the Arlington Sports Commission. Here we go. AEW says, we are thrilled to partner with the city of Arlington for AEW's first ever event at Esports Stadium. This AEW Summer Series will add to the rich legacy of major professional wrestling events held in the great state of Texas and serve as the ultimate springboard for AEW All In London on July 25th at Wembley Stadium, said AEW CEO, General Manager, and Head of Creative, Tony Khan. What a title he's got there. Went on to say this partnership would not have been possible without the tireless support of Matt Wilson, Justin Grimsley, and the Arlington Sports Commission and the city of Arlington teams, and of course, our incredibly passionate fan base throughout Texas. City of Arlington responded, we are honored to team with Tony Khan and All Elite Wrestling for this incredible opportunity, said the Arlington Sports Commission Executive Director Matt Wilson. The ability to host TNT's wildly popular AEW Collision program is another milestone achievement to bring worldwide events to Arlington and shine a global weekly spotlight on our beautiful city. So that is the news for AEW. They are starting this residency essentially in Arlington, in Texas, and it's interesting for two main reasons. Number one, the strategy behind this. And for me, I think the strategy for this is fairly simple. On one hand, for AEW, you have a attendance that is not great week to week for Collision. Of course, last week they were in Vancouver, and they did a great job there because that was their Vancouver debut. However, usually Collision attendance, especially in comparison to Dynamite and pay-per-views, has been down. That's just the truth. So as a way to combat that and you know, get rid of that problem, you begin a residency. And it's important, again, because you were able to take AEW Collision off the road for a little bit, which I think people have always... I don't think people have, thought about that enough. I mean, AEW, and one of the reasons it was hot, it was multiple reasons, obviously, it was hot, but one of the reasons was that it was a very special ticket, especially when it first started. When AEW was making their debuts in all these cities, this was new, fresh, and entertaining professional wrestling that, you know, people hadn't seen in WWE for a while, right? So this was this new, fresh thing. They're going to see it. And the fact that AEW Dynamite was touring once a week, and then the pandemic happened, and then like they weren't able to tour, like that's one of the reasons, I should say, why they were so hot when they came back. Because it felt special. Like this wasn't something that happened as often. And then, when you got Collision, you kind of split your houses a bit. Because now, instead of having one weekly show where you're touring, you have 2 weekly shows where you're touring. And I don't think people understand that weekly touring television, like it is hard. It is difficult to draw that. Unless you're WWE and you have been doing it for 40 years, drawing these massive houses week to week is a difficult thing. And eventually the bubble was going to burst on AEW's, new popularity, right? That was always going to happen. And it was about them like shifting. Now, what does this allow them to do? This allows them to take AEW Collision off the road and make it a little bit more special when it goes back on the road. And have the folks be on Dynamite. Dynamite's going to be its own thing. I think having more residencies like this actually could be beneficial for AEW in the future. Like, I think Rampage should definitely have like some sort of permanent like residential location or whatever. I just don't think that's the show to have, in a like in what is usually like a very emptier arena than AEW usually has. But I think this could be good in that respect, as it kind of, takes AEW Collision off the road, and you don't have to worry as much about the attendance, because the other news that we're learning that is being reported out there is that AEW is actually being paid by the city of Arlington. And this is an interesting note, because I think that people are overlooking that as well. The fact that AEW is getting paid for this is massive. We don't know the numbers yet. However, the fact that they're going to be getting paid and they're not going to be spending, the absorbent amount of money to take it on the road, to like have the trucks pull up in like different arenas, to drive to like different states, to set up the production in all those arenas week in, week out. That is going to cut down on production costs. That is going to cut down on costs potentially for talent, considering the location. That's a big hub for airports and whatnot, or travel, I should say. Like, it's going to be a little bit more, you would think, cost effective, especially when they're going to be paid to be there. And it could be a model, I think, for AEW moving forward. Like, I would love to see them have a residency in these different places, especially for a show like Collision. Like, that could be really cool. And you could kind of replicate a little bit of the magic where AEW, kind of over the pandemic especially, kind of like really built a connection with fans in Jacksonville. You go back and watch some of those Jacksonville shows after the pandemic, those are some of the best crowds that AEW has. And those aren't like 20,000 people. It's like between like 3,000 and 5,000 people usually at Daly's Place, but those are some of the best crowds, and it brings out something interesting and big in AEW. So we'll see what happens there. I think like, the other thing to take into account here is obviously the build up and the path to All In they're talking about. I think this is also a way to kind of get All In's name out there a bit from a marketing standpoint. Like, All In has sold at this point, I think the last count from WrestleTix, which I believe was last month, was like 40,000 tickets or something along the lines there, which is good. That is a very, very good house, especially for AEW. But like, you want to be able to sell more. You want to get to 50,000, potentially 60,000, right? Like, that should be your goal if you're AEW. You're not going to sell the 81,000 tickets you sold last year. That's just not going to happen. Like, that was a once in a lifetime thing. No other wrestling company has sold that many tickets for an event like that. But what you can do, right, is maximize it. And I think getting AEW All In's name out there, and like, while you can't really build matches up for it, while you can't really build stories up for it, I think it's a great marketing thing. And I think they need to continue to do that. They need to be plugging All In a little bit more than they are. But Interesting stuff here from AEW. We'll see how this turns out. But, guys, I want to hear from you. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments section as we move on to our next story. And big spoiler alert for this one. So I don't want you guys to get mad at me for this, but big spoiler alert as we're going to reveal the potential main event for WWE Clash at the Castle. You have been warned. Spoiler alert. According to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the main event of Clash at the Castle will feature World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest defending his belt against the hometown boy, Drew McIntyre. So McIntyre will once again main event Clash at the Castle, an event that was originally built around him. We all remember that amazing sequence that he had with Roman Reigns in Cardiff. They're trying to replicate a very similar thing here in Glasgow, which is in McIntyre's home nation of Scotland, which the ovation is going to be massive. Like, I think that arena fits well over 10,000 people. So they're going to have, it's going to be crazy. Hopefully we hear broken dreams, but this is something we've talked about. I mean, it was a no-brainer that Drew McIntyre was going to have a massive role in this show. The question was it going to be for the undisputed Universal Championship or the WWE Championship, whatever we want to call that, or the World Heavyweight Championship? Well, I guess now we know. Drew is going to be on a path to regain the championship that he believes he was screwed out of at WrestleMania when Damian Priest cashed in that Money in the Bank. And the story they could tell is one of the hometown hero, being right there, winning it, or at least getting close to winning it, and then maybe CM Punk comes in and ruins it. And then CM Punk is going to get booed out of the building in Glasgow. But there's a lot of different turns this could take. But the main thing is, I think it is time for them to finally put the belt on Drew. And I know the Punk thing that I just mentioned is something many fans want to see. I would like to see that. I think it could be a cool moment. But what I want to see more is Drew having that moment in front of fans where he gets to have a real world title win. And I don't think there's a better place to have that than at Clash at the Castle. Holding up that world title and essentially in a way kind of redeeming that moment that he lost at Mania 36 when the pandemic happened, and then not just losing it the same 5 minutes later or whatever, getting to hold on to it and end the night as champion. That's a massive moment that fans have been waiting to see across the world, and those fans in Scotland have wanted to see that as well. So interesting stuff there, guys. I want to hear from you, though. What do you guys think would happen between Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest for the World Championship at the Clash at the Castle? Would Drew win? Would Punk screw him? Would Damian Priest go over clean? That would be insane. Let me know in the comment section, though. Until next time, I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.